Good morning, everyone. We're here in our lesson 5, which is the subject and content of art. Our, object, our objectives was differentiate representational art and non-representational art. Discuss the difference between an artwork or subject and its content. Identify the subject matter and specific examples of art. Enumerate the sources of the subject of some of the most recognizable works of art in the Philippine art history. Subject and content has 3 parts. First, subject, the visual focus, it's the image that may be extracted from examining the artwork or the what. Second, the form, the meaning that is communicated by the artist or the artwork, the why. Content, the development in the configuration of the artwork, how the elements in the medium or material are out together, or the how. Look and try to see this picture below of 16th century by artist Gergon. The Sleeping Venus of 1508, 1510. It was inspired by many artists, and through the representation of the Venus, artists created a pattern, which involves time and different revolutions in the depiction of woman in art as a result. Venus becomes Odalisque, and then Olympias, in the subject matter used with this art is mythology. During the Renaissance and early Mannerist period of the Romans and Greeks, and also as a way of escaping from a relatively restrictive devotions or religious matter. The term subject art or subject and arts refers to the main idea that is represented in the artwork, which the subject and arts is basically the essence of the piece. To determine subject matter in a particular piece of art. Almost all art forms or painting, sculpture, photography, music, literature, theater, or dance, there is a subject that serves as the foundation of the creation of the work of art. The subject matter is the most obvious aspect of an artwork. It is what the work of art depicts or represents. It may be a person, an object, a scene, or an event. The subject provides the answer to the question, what is the work of art all about? And what is actually depicted in this artwork? The subject matter of art should not be the basis for judging works of art. It doesn't mean that representational arts are superior to non-representational arts. Some, some arts have a subject and others do not. Furthermore, works that depict pleasant subjects are not necessarily greater than who that depict unpleasant subjects. What matters most in art is not the subject matter, but how will the artist handle or represent the subject matter in his or her work. Content, the meaning that is communicated by the artist or the artwork, its understanding or in understanding the content of art, it is important to note that there are various levels of meaning, which is have functional meaning, the most rudimentary level of meaning, for it may be extracted from the identifiable or recognizable forms in the artwork, and understanding how these elements relate to one another. Conventional meaning pertains to the acknowledged interpretation of the artwork using motifs, signs, and symbols and other ciphers as basis of its meaning. Subjective meaning. When subjectives are consulted, a variety of meanings may arise when a particular work of art is read. These meanings stem from a viewer or audience's circumstances that come into play when engaging with art. What we know, what we learned, what we experience, and what we found, or what we values we stand for. This was the picture of content by Seaport by Johann Anton Eastmans of 1500. And there are some examples of art with subjects, which is from this one, Die Even von Overst of Whitfeld, near Overs Vincent by Van Gogh of 1890. The Cubulus Meron of Roman, it was made or drawn by 2nd century after that. El Tres de Mayo Francisco de Goya of 1814. And lastly,
Subject versus content. Subject. In art, the definition of the subject is referring to the main character, object, or anything else that is presented as the main focus in the work of art. The subject can appear in the center of the piece or in any or other part of it, but it is always the most recognizable thing in the entire work of art, regardless of its size. This center of attention will be recognized whether it is a commonly known thing or because it can be seen in context alongside the rest of the work of art. For example, in a photograph, a dog running on the beach, the dog would be the subject because it is the most recognizable component in the picture. In conclusion, the subject is the most recognizable part of the work of art. There are two types of subject representational art. These types of art have subjects that refers to the objects that to objects or events occurring in the real world, also termed figurative art because the figures depicted are easy to make out and decipher. For example, Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci 1503. Despite not knowing Mona Lisa is, it is clear that the painting is a woman that is realistically proportioned. Only the upper torso is shown, a big willing and mysterious smile is shown, the background is a landscape. Non-representational art. Art forms that do not make a reference to real world, whether it is a person, place, thing, or even a particular event. It is stripped down to visual elements such as shapes, lines, and colors that are employed to translate a particular feeling, emotion, and event, and even concept. For example, number 1A Jackson Pollock, 1948. Content. In the world of art, a definition of content is referred to as the general meaning or intention of the piece. It is the way to manifest the message that the artist wants to say with his work. Content is the message given by the piece of art, and it involves the subject, the techniques used to make the piece, the colors used, and anything that was used by the artist to make a statement and give a message. So, in the same example mentioned before, a photograph of a dog running on the beach, the content could be the dog's hair moving in the air, its tongue coming out, the white sand, warm light from the sun, etc. It allows to give the message that the dog feels free and happy running outside as the overall meaning or message of the work of art. The meaning or message that is expressed or communicated by the artwork in understanding the content of art, it is important to note that there are various levels of meaning. There are three various meanings of content. The factual meaning. The most rudimentary level of meaning for it may be extracted from the identifiable or recognizable forms in the artwork and understanding how these elements relatable to one another. Conventional meaning pertains to the acknowledged interpretation to the artwork using motifs, signs, and symbols, and the other side appears as basis of its meaning. These conventions are established through time strengthened by recurrent use and wide acceptance by its viewers or audience and scholars who study them. Subjective meaning. When subjectives are consulted, a variety of meanings may arise when a particular work of art is read. Lastly, the main difference between subject versus content. Pieces of art are at least composed of three parts: subject, form, and content. And normally it is easy to confuse the subject and the content, but now you know that they are two different things. The content involves all the parts of a work of art, and this includes the subject, making it a part of the content. This means that the content can be seen as a macro element on the piece, whereas the subject can be seen as a micro element on the artwork.
Types of visual art according to subject. Visual art. The visual art are art forms such as painting, drawing, printmaking, sculpture, ceramics, photography, video, filmmaking, design, craft, and architecture. Many artistic disciplines such as performing arts, conceptual art, and textile art also involve aspects of visual arts as well as arts of other types. Also include within the visual arts before the arts and craft movement in Britain and elsewhere at the turn of the 20th century, the term artist had for some centuries often been restricted to a person working in the fine arts such as painting, sculpture, or printmaking, and not the decorative arts, craft, or applied visual arts media. This distinction was emphasized by artists of the arts and craft movement who valued vernacular art form as much as high form. Two types of visual art, according to subject, representational or figurative art, non-representational or non-objective art. Representational art Representational art describes artwork, particularly painting and sculpture, that are clearly derived from real object source and therefore are by definition representing sometimes with strong visual references to the real world. Art or figurative art represents objects or events in the real world, usually looking easier recognized. For example, a painting of a cat looks very much like a cat. It's cute, obvious what the artist is depicting. Non-representational art and non-objective art. Non-representational art may simply depict shape, color, lines, etc., but may also express things that are not visible emotion or feeling. That Dutch painter Piet Mondrian 1872 to 1944 is a perfect example of non-representational artist, and most people look to his work when defining this style. Mondrian labeled his work as neoplasticism, and he was a leader in the still a distinct Dutch complete abstraction movement. Mondrian works such as W 1921 is flat. It is often a canvas filled with rectangle painted in primary colors and separated by thick, amazingly straight black lines on the surface. It has no rhyme or reason, but it is captivating and inspiring nonetheless. The appeal is in the structural perfection combined with the asymmetrical balance, creating a juxtaposition of simply complexity. Non-representational art, figurative art.
Excuse. Representational art or figurative art. Representational artwork aims to represent actual objects or subjects from reality. They are artworks which are based on images which can be found in the objective world, or at least in the artist's imagination. Images which can perhaps be named or recognized. Subcategories under representational art include realism, impressionism, idealism, and stylization. All of these forms of representational arts represent actual subjects from reality. Although some of these forms are taking steps towards abstraction, it is also the easiest to identify from a viewer's perspective. It is also represents the largest collection of artwork created and has gone through many phases and movements. Yet, the principle of presenting the viewer with the recognizable subject matter has stayed the same. So as you can see, the picture of Mona Lisa is one of the best example for representational art or figurative art. So rendered similarly to Renaissance portrayals of the Virgin Mary, the place features a female figure believed by most to be Lisa Girardini, the wife of the cloth and silk merchant Francisco Chogondo. From the waist up, she is shown seated in a loggia or a room with at least one open side. Behind her, he is a hazy and seemingly isolated landscape imagined by the artist and painted using stompatu, a technique resulting forms without lines or borders in the manner of smoke or beyond the focus plane. The figure sits with her arms folded as she gazes at the viewer and appears to softly smile, an aesthetic attribute that has proven particularly eye-catching over centuries. The half-hearted or even ambiguous nature of this smile makes the iconic painting all more enigmatic, prompting viewers to try to understand both mood of its muse and intentions of its artist. Her gaze is another bewitching part of the composition. Many believe that her eyes follow you across the room, making her an active participant when being viewed rather than remaining an object to look upon. But while her eyes may seemingly follow you, according to German researchers, this Mona Lisa effect actually does not occur in the painting in the painting. In fact, they claim that the woman is always look about 15 degrees to your right. So more likely at your ear than your eyes. Whatever the case, perceived or real, her ambiguous expression is one of the strongest reason for Mona Lisa's enduring success. So in addition to its mysterious appearance, her expression has resonated most strongly with art historians of its possible symbolism, as many believe it to be clever visual representation of the idea of happiness suggested by word Gioconda in Italian. Consequently, the piece has become known as one of the most recognizable, skillfully rendered works of art. So another example for representational art is the art of Marcelo Fernando. On the other hand, the representational or figurative arts, again, represents objects or events in the real world. So this is the keyword for representational art or figurative art, usually looking easily recognizable. As an example of it is the painting of Amorsolo Fernando, The Planting Rice, which signifies the life of Filipino who belongs to being a farmer. So the pictures portrays something other than its form. This painting fails under the classification of painting as genre, as it painted in the contemporary life of Filipino farmers in 1951. When it was painted as they are engaged their regular everyday occupation and activities, behind the workers, a farmer with a caravan of flaps. In the background is cluster nipa huts along the thick accumulation of trees and weeds. The central grouping of lush trees and hills provides an idyllic setting for the workers besides a mountain view or background. So consequently, the painting basically captures the traditional Filipino occupation of the farm life of men and women on a hot, sunny day. It depicts how enduring they are and how the farmers work together.
Non-representational or non-objective art. Non-representational art or non-objective art. Non-objective art is another way to refer to a non-representational art. Essentially, the artwork does not represent or depict a person, place, or thing in the natural world. Usually, the content of the work is its color, shapes, brush strokes, size, scale, in some cases, its process. Many people have difficulty in understanding the differences between abstract art and non-objective art. The clear differences lies in the subject matter chosen. If the artist begins with a subject from reality, the artwork is considered to be abstract. If the artist is creating with no reference to reality, then the work is considered to be non-objective. Work work that does not depict anything from the real world, figures, landscapes, animals, etc., is called non-representational art. Non-representational art may simply depict the shapes, colors, lines, etc., but may also express things that are not visible, emotions or feelings, for example. Even art aims to verisimilitude, accuracy, and truthfulness. The highest degree can be said to be abstract, at least theoretically, since perfect representation is like to be exceeding elusive artwork, which takes liberties, altering, for instance, color and form in ways that are conspicuous, can be said to be partially abstract. One example of non-figurative art is Robert de la Unay, Le Premier Disc, 1913. De la Unay's work is a primary example of early non-representational art, bearing no trace of any reference to anything recognizable from the real world. In non-representational art, for instance, one is unlikely to find reference to naturalistic entities. List of national artists of the Philippines. In awarding the National Artist of the Philippines, the order of the highest state honor is conferred on individuals deemed as having done much for their artistic field. Deserving individuals must have been recommended by both the Cultural Center and the National Commission for Culture and the Arts prior to receiving the award. Such people are then titled, by virtue of a presidential proclamation, as national artist or gawad pambansang alagad ng sining, and are inducted into the order. 1972 national artist Fernando Amorsolo E. Cueto, visual art painting category, was one of the most important artists in the history of Philippine paintings. Amorsolo was a portraitist and painter of rural Philippine landscapes. He is popularly known for his craftsmanship and mastery in the use of art. Some of his artworks were La Siega and Antipolo. 1973 national artist Francisca Reyes Aquino, dance category, was a Filipino folk dancer and academic noted for her research on Philippine folk dance. She is a recipient of the Republic Award of Merit and the Ramon Magsaysay Award, and is a designated national artist of the Philippines for dance. Carlos Modesto Botong Villaluz Francisco, visual art painting category, was a Filipino muralist from Angono, Rizal. Francisco was a most distinguished practitioner of mural paintings for many decades and best known for his historical pieces. He was one of the first Filipino modernists of all time, with Galo Ocampo and Victorio C. Idades, who broke away from Fernando Amorsolo's romanticism of Philippine scenes. According to restorer Helmut Joseph Zotter, Francisco's art is a prime example of linear painting where lines and contours appear like cutouts. Amado Vera Hernandez, literature category, was a Filipino writer and labor leader who was known for his criticism of social injustice in the Philippines and was later imprisoned for his involvement in the communist movement. He was the central figure in a landmark legal case that took 13 years to settle. Antonio Molina, music category, was a Filipino composer, conductor, and music administrator. He was named a National Artist of the Philippines for his services to music. He was also known as the Claude Debussy of the Philippines due to his use of impressionist themes in his music. Juan Felipe de Jesus Nakpil, architecture category, known as Juan F. Nakpil, a Filipino architect teacher and a community leader. In 1973, he was named one of the National Artists of Architecture. He was regarded as the Dean of the Filipino Architects. Guillermo Estrella Tolentino, visual art sculpture category, was a Filipino sculptor and professor of the University of the Philippines. He was designated as a National Artist of the Philippines for sculpture in 1973, 3 years before his death. Jose Garcia Villa, literature category, was a Filipino poet, literary critic, short story writer, and painter. He was awarded National Artist of the Philippines title for literature in 1973, as well as the Guggenheim Fellowship in Creative Writing by Conrad Aiken. He is known to have introduced the reverse consonance rhyme scheme in writing poetry, as well as the extensive use of punctuation marks, especially commas, which made him known as the comma poet. He used the pen name Duviglion derived from dove, eagle, lion, based on the characters he derived from his own works. These animals were also explored by another poet, E. E. Cummings, in Duviglion, Adventures in Value, a poem dedicated to Villa. 1976 national artist, Napoleon Billy Biloso Abueva, visual art sculpture category, was known as the father of modern Philippine sculpture. Through Proclamation Number 1539, he was proclaimed National Artist for Sculpture in 1976 when he was 46, making him the youngest recipient of the award to date. Leonor Orosa Gogenko, dance category, was a Filipino national artist in creative dance. She played the piano, drew art, designed scenery and costumes, sculpted, acted, directed, danced, and choreographed. Her pen name was Cristina Luna and she was known as Trailblazer, mother of the Philippine theater dance and dean of the Philippine Performing Arts Critics. Lamberto Vera Avellana, film and theater category, was a prominent Filipino film and stage director, despite considerable budgetary limitations that hampered the post-war Filipino film industry. Avellana's films such as Anak Dalita and Badyaw attained international acclaim. In 1976, Avellana was named by President Ferdinand Marcos as the first Philippine artist of the Philippines for film. Nicomedes Nick Marquez Joaquin, literature category, was a Filipino writer and journalist best known for his short stories and novels in English language. He also wrote using the pen name Quijano de Manila. Joaquin was conferred the rank and the title of National Artist of the Philippines for literature. He has been considered one of the most important Filipino writers, along with Jose Rizal and Claro M. Recto. Unlike Rizal and Recto, whose works were written in Spanish, Joaquin's major works were written in English, despite being a native Spanish speaker. Joveto Puentes, music category, was a Filipino soprano singer. Victorio C. Idades, visual art painting category, was a Filipino painter. He led the revolutionary 13 moderns who engaged their classical compatriots in heated debate over the nature and function of art. He was named a national artist in 1976. Pablo Severo Antonio Sr., architecture category, was a Filipino architect, a pioneer of modern Philippine architecture. He was recognized in some quarters as the foremost Filipino modernist architect of his time. The rank and title of National Artist of the Philippines was conferred on him by President Ferdinand Marcos in 1976. 1981 National Artist Vicente Silva Manansala, visual arts painting category, was a Filipino cubist painter and illustrator. He was a member of the prominent Cruz Manansala Lopez family. In addition, cubist painter means Vicente Silva Manansala used geometry lines in his paintings. 1982 National Artist Gerardo de Leon, film category, was a Filipino film director and actor. Carlos Peña Romulo, literature category, was a Filipino diplomat, statesman, soldier, journalist, and author. He was a reporter at 16, a newspaper editor by the age of 20, and a publisher at 32. 1987 National Artist Honorata de la Rama Hernandez, theater and music category, commonly known as Atang de la Rama, was a singer and vaudeville performer who became the first Filipina film actress. 1988 National Artist Antonio Ramirez Buenaventura, music category, was a Filipino composer, conductor, and teacher. Lucrecia Faustino Reyes Ortula, dance category, was a Filipino choreographer, theater director, teacher, author, and researcher on ethnic dance. She was the founding director of the Bayanihan Philippine National Folk Dance Company and was named National Artist of the Philippines for Dance in 1988. 1989 National Artist Lucrecia Roses Casilag, music category, was a Filipino composer and pianist. She is particularly known for incorporating indigenous Filipino instruments into orchestral productions. 1990 National Artist Cesar Torrente Legaspi, visual arts painting category, was a Filipino national artist in painting. He was also an art director prior to going full-time in his visual art practice in 1960s. His early 1940s to 1960s works, alongside those of peer Hernando Ocampo, are described as depictions of anguish and dehumanization of beggars and laborers in the city. These include men and women, alternatively known as beggars and gadgets. Leandro Biloxin Architecture was a Filipino architect, artist, and interior designer known for his use of concrete, floating volume, and simplistic design in his various projects. An avid collector, he was fond of modern paintings and Chinese ceramics. He was a prod and national artist of the Philippines for architecture in 1990 by the late President Corazon C. Aquino. 1991 National Artist Hernando Ruz Ocampo, Visual Arts Painting category, was a Filipino national artist in the visual arts. He is also a fictionist, a playwright, and editor. Lucia de San Pedro Sr., Music category, was a Filipino composer and teacher who was proclaimed a National Artist of the Philippines for Music in 1991. 1997 National Artist, Catalino Ortiz Broca, Film category, was a Filipino film director. He is widely regarded as one of the most influential and significant Filipino filmmakers in the history of Philippine cinema. He co-founded the organization Concerned Artists of the Philippines, or CAP, dedicated to helping artists address issues confronting the country, and the Free the Artist movement. He was a member of the Coalition for the Restoration of Democracy. Felipe Padilla de Leon, Music category, was a Filipino classical music composer, conductor, and scholar. Wilfredo Maria Guerrero, Theater category, was a Filipino playwright, director, teacher, and theater artist. Guerrero wrote over 100 plays, 41 of which have been published. His unpublished plays have either been broadcast over the radio or staged in various parts of the Philippines. Rolando Santos Tino, Theater and Literature, was a Filipino poet, dramatist, director, actor, critic, essayist, and educator. Nestor Vicente Madali Gonzalez, Literature category, was a Filipino novelist, short story writer, essayist, and poet, conferred as the National Artist of the Philippines for Literature in 1997. Leve Celerio, Music and Literature category, was a Filipino composer and lyricist who is credited to writing not less than 4,000 songs. Celerio was recognized as a National Artist of the Philippines for Music and Literature in 1997. He was also known using the left of a musical instrument, which led to being recognized as the only man who could play music using a left by the Guinness Book of Records. This led to him making guest appearances in television shows recorded outside the Philippines. Montserrat Maceda, Music category, was a Filipino composer and ethnomusicologist. In addition, when you say ethnomusicologist, it is a person who studied the music of the world. Carlos Losada Quirino, Historical Literature category, was a Philippine biographer and historian. Carlos Quirino is a nephew of Philippine President Elpidio Quirino. He is a famous Filipino. He is best known for his early biography of Jose Rizal. He also wrote several works, The Filipino History and Biographies of President Manuel Aquino, and painter Damian Domingo. In 1997, he was recognized as a National Artist of the Philippines for Historical Literature. 1999 National Artist Jerry Navarro Elizalde, Visual Arts Painting category, was a Philippine artist. He studied in the University of the Philippines, Manila, as a Ramon Roses Publication Scholar in 1947. The following year, he transferred to the University of Santo Tomas. He studied fine arts with a major in painting. He graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in 1951. While studying at the university, he was also an art editor for university newspaper, The Barsitarian. His wife is sculptor Virginia T. Navarro. Hernani Joson Cuenco, Music category, was a Filipino composer, film scorer, musical director, music teacher, and Philippine National Artist for Music. He wrote an outstanding and memorable of works that resonate with the Philippine sense of musicality, in which embody an ingenious voice that raises the aesthetic dimensions of contemporary Filipino music. Cuenco played with the Filipino Youth Symphony Orchestra and the Manila Symphony Orchestra from 1960 to 1968, and the Manila Chamber Soloist from 1966 to 1970. Andrea Ofilada Veneracion, music category, was a Filipino choral conductor and a recipient of 1999 Artist for Music Award. She founded the Philippine Madrigal Singers in 1963. She was also an adjudicator in numerous international choral competitions and was an active force in choral music before her massive stroke in 2005. Edith El Tiempo, literature category, poet, fiction writer, teacher, and literary critic, was a Filipino writer in the English language. And lastly, Daisy Avellana in theater category was a Filipino stage actress and theater director. Avellana was honored as a National Artist of the Philippines for theater and film in 1999.
2001 national artist. Ishmael Bernal was a Filipino filmmaker, stage and television director, actor, and screenwriter, noted for his melodramas, particularly with the feminist and moral issues. He directed many landmark Filipino films such as Nunal sa Tubig in 1976, City After Dark 1980, Relasyon 1982, Himala 1982, and Hinugot sa Langit 1985. He was declared a National Artist of the Philippines in 2001. Seberino Montano is considered as one of the titans of the Philippine theater. He was a playwright, director, actor, and theater organizer with an output of one novel, 150 poems, and 50 plays in his 65 year lifetime. Through the foundation of the Arena Theater, Montano institutionalized legitimate theater in the Philippines. He also have Lifetime Achievement Award as part of the National Artist of the Philippines. Francisco Chunel Jose is one of the most widely read Filipino writers in the English language. His novels and short stories depict the social underpinnings of class struggles and colonialism in the Filipino society. Jose's work, written in English, have been translated into 28 languages, including Korean, Czech, Russian, Latvian, Ukrainian, and Dutch. Ang Kyokok was a Filipino painter known for his expressive, cubist-like works. He often chose dynamic or disturbing subject matter, frequently depicting rabid dogs, crucifixions, and screaming figures in an abstract, geometric style. 2003 National Artist. Virgilio Sinadrin Almario, better known by his pen name Rayo Alma, is a Filipino artist, author, poet, critic, translator, editor, teacher, and cultural manager. He is a national artist of the Philippines and currently serves as the chairman of the Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino, the government agency mandated to promote the standardize the use of the Filipino language. On January 5, 2017, Almario was also elected as the chairman of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. Jose T. Hoya was the Filipino abstract artist and the National Artist of the Philippines awardee. Hoya was a printmaker, painter, mixed media artist, and the former dean of the University of the Philippine College of Fine Arts. He pioneered abstract expressionism in the Philippines. He canvases were characterized by the dynamic spontaneity and quick gesture of action painting. He is the creator of compositions that were described as vigorous compositions of heavy impastos, bold blast strokes, controlled dips, and the diag- diagonal swipes. Hoya added the brilliant topic colors. He was awarded a Fulbright Smile grant, which enabled him to pursue master's degree in fine arts in 1956 to 57. Alejandro Reyes Roses was a Filipino author, essayist, dramatist, and the national artist of the Philippines for literature. He served as a Secretary of Education from 1962 to 1965 during the term of the Philippine President Diosdado Macapagal. Edgar Cinco Romero, commonly known as Eddie Romero, was a Filipino film director, film producer, and screenwriter. His famous works are Ganito Kami Noon, Paano Kayo Ngayon, 1974, Savage Sister, 1973, Beyond Atlantis, Black Mama, White Mama, Two Women, One White, One Black Escape from a Women's Detention Camp in the Philippines Change Together, 1972, The Twilight People, 1971, Beast of the Yellow Night, 1965, The Ravagers, 1964, The Walls of Hell. Salvador Floro Bernal was an artist from the Philippines. Bernal's career began in 1969. His output included over 300 productions in art, film, and music, and earned him the award of National Artist Theater and Design in 2003. He earned a philosophy degree in 1966 from the Ateneo de Manila University, where he would later teach literature and stage design. Bernal organized the Philippine Association of Theater Designers and Technicians in 1995, through which he introduced Philippine theater design to the world. 2006 National Artist Benedicto Reyes Cabrera, better known as Ben Cub, is a Filipino painter and was awarded National Artist of the Philippines for Visual Arts in 2006. He was been noted as arguably the best-selling painter in his generation of Filipino artists. Abdul Marie Asia Imaw was a Filipino painter and sculptor. Imaw named National Artist of the Philippines for Sculpture in 2006. Itausog, Imaw is the first Moro to receive the recognition. Aside from being a sculptor, Imaw is also a painter, photographer, ceramist, cultural researcher, documentary filmmaker, writer, and a patron of a Philippine Muslim art and culture. Bienvenido Lombera is a Filipino poet, critic, and dramatist. He is a national artist of the Philippines and a recipient of the Ramon Magsaysay Award for Journalism, Literature, and Creative Communications. He won numerous literary awards, including the National Book Award from the National Book Foundation and the Carlos Palanca Memorial Awards. Ramon Arevalo Ubusan was a Filipino dancer, choreographer, stage designer, and artist director. Ubusan is credited for his work in promoting Philippine traditional dance and cultural work. He is also an acclaimed archivist, researcher, and documentary filmmaker. who focused on the Philippine culture. He also founded Ramon Ubusan Folkloric Group in 1971. Among the awards Ubusan received was the Patnubay ng Kalinangan Award by the City of Manila in 1992. The Gawad CCP para sa Sining Award in 1993, and the prestigious National Artist of the Philippines for Dance in May 2006. Ildefonso Paez Santos Jr., popularly known simply as IP Santos, was a Filipino architect who was known for being the father of the Philippine landscape architecture. He was recognized as a national artist of the Philippines in the field of architecture in 2006. Ronald Alan Kelly Poe, better known as a Fernando Poe Jr. and colloquially known as FPJ, Ronaldo Reyes and the King, was a Filipino actor, director, and politician. His long career as an action film star earned him the nickname King of the Philippine Movies. During the latter part of his career, Poe was defeated by then President William Macapagal Arroyo in the 2004 Philippine president elections. Lastly, Ramon Valera was a fashion designer from the Philippines who was bestowed with the National Artist of the Philippines honor in 2006. He is the country's first and only fashion designer to receive this distinction. His work was displayed in an exhibit called Valera and the Modern, an exhibit on the life and work of the national artist for fashion design, Ramon Valera, which was curated by Gary Torres at the La Salle College of St. Binel School in Design and Arts Gallery.
National Artist Manuel Conde, Filipino actor, director, and producer. As an actor, he also used the screen name Juan Urbano during the 1930s aside from his more popular screen name. Lazaro Francisco E. Angeles, also known as Lazaro A. Francisco, was a Filipino novelist, essayist, and playwright. Francisco was posthumously named National Artist of the Philippines for Literature in 2009.
Ay, game pa-swap kami.
Federico Aguilar Alquaz was a Filipino painter who exhibited extensively international both in the Philippines and abroad. Alquaz was conferred to the title of National Artist for Visual Arts, Painting, Sculpture, and Mixed Media in 2009. However, four nominees for the award other than Alquaz became embroiled in the 2009 National Artist of the Philippine controversy, which led the Supreme Court of the Philippines to temporarily issue a status quo order on August 20, 2009, blocking the conferment of the awards on all seven nominees, despite the fact that no objections were ever raised regarding the conferment of the award to Alquaz and two other nominees.
2014 national artist, Alice Garcia Reyes, is a Filipino dancer, choreographer, teacher, director, and producer. The founder, together with Eddie Elihar of Valley, Philippines. She received last June 20, 2014 from President Aquino, the highest award in the arts, National Artist of the Philippines. She was chiefly responsible in popularizing contemporary dance with the Alice Reyes Dance Company, which staged the first modern dance concert at the Cultural Center of the Philippines Main Theater on February 1970. It was this company that later became Ballet Philippines. She is best known for Bugos, Suit, Carmina Burana, Romeo and Juliet, Rama Hari, Cinderella, Amada, Itim Asu, and Tales of Manuvo, all announced with Filipino culture, gestures, and grace. Francisco Viconchin was a Filipino comic books illustrator and writer, and it's regarded as one of the pillars of the Philippines comics industry. He served as both illustrator and writer of his comic book story. Conching is referred to as the King of Comics and as the Dean of Philippine Comics. In 2014, he was posthumously conferred as a National Artist of Visual Art, the highest honor of artists in the Philippines. Cirilo F. Bautista was a Filipino poet, critic, and writer of nonfiction. A National Artist of the Philippines award was conferred on him in 2014. Francisco Feliciano was a Filipino composer and conductor. He was a National Artist of the Philippine music. He first exploded into the Manila spotlight with the opera La Loba Negra. Other prize-winning works include Pokpok Alimpako, The Ballet Worma, Sekhay, Sa Kabila ng Paalam, Beyond the Farewell, Jose Abad Santos, and Ashin Wings. His work has been performed as choral festivals in Europe and the United States. Last 'Ramon Pagayo Santos is a Filipino composer, musicologist, and ethnomusicologist. He is a National Artist of the Philippines for Music and University Professor Emeritus of Composition and Theory Department, the College of Music of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Jose Maria Zaragoza played a key role in the reconstruction of post-war Philippines, helping reshape the landscape of Manila Ravay Second World War through his shrinking structures that meld modernism and Philippine motifs and style. He designed some of the most famous religious structures in the Philippines, such as the Santo Domingo Church and Convent and the Pink Sister Convent, both in Quezon City. The Union Church of the Manila, a Protestant church, and St. John Bosco Parish Church on Nais Avenue, Pasay Road, in Makati, and the Shrine of Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal in Posadas Village, Muntinlupa City. (2018) National Artist Lauro Larry Zarate Alcala was a well-known editorial cartoonist and illustrator in the Philippines in 2018. He was posthumously conferred the National Artist of Visual Arts title and the Grand Collar of the Order of National Artists, Order ng Pambansang Alagad ng Sining. Amelia Lapeda Bonifacio is a Filipino playwright, puppeteer, and educator known as the Grande Dame of Southeast Asia Children's Theater. She was recognized in 2018 as National Artist of the Philippines for Theater a conferment which represents the Philippine State highest recognition artist. Ryan Kayab, also known as Mr. C, is a Filipino musician, composer, and conductor. He was the executive and artistic director for several years for the defunct San Miguel Corporation for the Performing Arts. He was named National Artist of the Philippines for Music in 2018. Francisco Bobby Manosa was a Filipino architect considered as one of the most influential Filipino architects of 20th century for having pioneered the art of the Philippines neo-vernacular architecture. His contribution to the development of the Philippine architecture led to his recognition as National Artist of the Philippines for Architecture. Rizal B. Mujares is a Filipino historian and critic of the Philippine literature, best known for his book on Philippine history. He is acclaimed by various writers and critics as the Visayan Titan of letters due to his immense contribution to Visayan literature. Ramon Mosones was a writer and a lawyer and the posthumous recipient of National Artist of the Philippines for Literature Award in 2018. He wrote in Hiligaynon and popular Hiligaynon literature. Eric Oitesa Digya, better known as Kidlat Tahimik, Lightning Silent. It is a film director, writer, and actor whose films are commonly associated with the third cinema movement through their critique of neo-lunism.
These are lesson 5, which I will thank you and I will say thank you to my members, which is Karen Claire S. Aurelio, Gentle May, C. Kasumpang, Mary Jean O. Hortensio, Queenie Johnson, Hunson, John Mark M. Fernandez, and Jerlyn Esbulios, and lastly, Laila Crazy Joy Barrieta. And thank you everyone for your cooperation. Thank you, sir, and goodbye. God bless.